few things I want to say about this. I think this is one of the most important pieces of legislation that we've passed in my time on the council, and I'll say it goes further than the original minimum wage bill, which though it moved to $11.50, I think we all knew, even as we were doing that, that didn't get us where we needed to go. It just was simply the largest step that we could take at the time. And so this, I think, starts bringing us closer to a wage where people can meet their basic needs and achieve a level of independence that simply is not possible at $11.50 or anybody else who's got a lower wage than that. When Franklin Roosevelt set out to create the minimum wage, he didn't say this was a starting wage. He said this was a wage that should allow a person to meet their basic needs. And that message over time has gotten lost and it's gotten eroded. And I feel like the council's actions today, which I'm confident are going to occur, actually relinks the minimum wage to the original purpose of the minimum wage. And I'm really happy that we have the support of the council to do this. There was a lot of heat and there was some fire, but no bridges got burned. And I think that was important. We continued to talk. There were passionate views on all sides of this. You know, I proposed the bill for 2020 because I would have liked to see it in 2020. I actually would have, if I could have done it tomorrow, I would have done it tomorrow because the wage should get there as soon as possible. But there's also, you know, the concerns we have to make about how fast we can move politically. And I think that for the majority of this council to get to the point where actually it's going to be probably close to unanimous, if not unanimous, was an amazing undertaking, and I'm really happy that we've arrived there. So what we're doing, we're committing ourselves to raising the wage to $15 for all workers, but to continue to let that wage rise with inflation, so we do not, as Mr. Hucker said, wind up where we were before. I mean, I think all of us know that if this had been tied to inflation from the beginning, we wouldn't be in this mess today. And if we were talking about closing a gap, it would be a small gap, not the kind of gap that we were faced with trying to deal with. And that's what made this, I think, more difficult than it needed to be. So I'm glad we're correcting this historic injustice. What's always informed me in doing this is, you know, I taught in a high poverty school in Montgomery County. And I did that for 17 years, and I saw close up what poverty does to people. And, you know, in this debate we hear a lot about was somebody who flips a hamburger with $15 an hour. I saw somebody recently questioning whether trash truck drivers, people who go out in rain, snow, heat, and cold, miserable conditions and do work that none of us would do, were worth $37,000 a year. And it just boggles my mind that people don't focus on what it takes to support a family rather than simply equating this, is the job worth it? If the job needs to be done by a human being ought to be able to put a roof over their head, take care of their kids, buy food, and not have to make draconian choices between do I visit a doctor or do I hope that the landlord won't evict me if I don't make rent this month. And as a teacher, I saw kids come to school hungry, and hungry kids don't focus on their work. You can't sit there with your belly burning and pay attention to what's going on in class. And teachers don't always recognize that. And kids don't come out and say, hey, I'm hungry. It's a hard thing for a kid to tell you I haven't eaten since Friday, the last meal, which was lunch in school. So we don't even know the depth of what people go through. You know, it comes out once in a while, but you can see it in the faces of the kids and you can see it in the behavior of kids. These kids grow up in families where they're economically insecure. And economic insecurity isn't just an adult problem, it becomes a child problem. Because when you see the parents arguing about money, when you see parents worrying about where am I going to live next month, it is impossible for a child to sit in a house and listen to those discussions and not feel the uncertainty that their parents feel. And kids should not be forced to wrestle with these kind of adult problems. It's just wrong. And we ought to make sure that we are providing a floor where these kind of discussions don't have to happen the way they happen in too many households in America and too many households in Montgomery County. And we read articles about depression And now they link poverty to depression. And what does depression do? It impairs people's ability to make decisions. So there are a myriad of reasons that have nothing to do whether you're turning down a bed for a hotel room or holding a hamburger flipper in your hand or loading stuff into the back of a truck. The real reasons about human lives that really matter. And that's why I'm supporting raising the minimum wage. That's why we need to raise the minimum wage. We've got to have a discussion and continue to have discussion about what it takes to live in America and how do you make sure that everybody is safe and secure, can raise their kids. And I got to say, none of us up here have to face this. You know, when we talk about, the tough decision, I was thinking, like, what's the tough decision for a family trying to manage their resources? When people talk about, the issues that small business people have, and how are they going to adjust, I'm always thinking, look, how do we ask poor people to adjust? They just have to adjust. There's no choice. This is reality. So for a modicum of respect and a modicum of decency, I think what we're doing today is really important. We are one of the wealthiest counties in the country. We have an astoundingly expensive cost of living here. I know when there was a discussion about Minneapolis one time, I looked at the data on Minneapolis. The thing that struck me, Minneapolis was almost identical to Montgomery County in almost every cost except for one. And we could all guess what that is: housing. And the difference in housing cost was almost $9,000 a year. And when I saw that, I was just like, what's right for Minneapolis is different than what's right for Montgomery County. We've got to get this right for Montgomery County. So I think we've done this today. I'm really appreciative of my colleagues who, the 4 who stood with us from the beginning and the 4 who continued to be willing to talk about this to get to this end. We would not be here if we'd not been able to have these discussions. I appreciate the thought that went into this. This is hard, but I think it's important. And so with that, I'll say thank everybody for getting us here.